Hi, class. This is my audience.
Hi.
Okay. So, for this, I'm going to need a little audience participation. Who wants to be my mom?
Me.
Very energetic. Who wants to be my dad?
Me.
There we go. Okay, so for my mom, I was a very hypochondriac child, and she was a nurse, so I ran to her for everything. So you're going to say this in a frustrated, annoyed tone. What is it this time?
What is it this time?
Whenever I point at you. And you are going to say, Eeyaki! In the manliest voice you can. Go!
Eeyaki!
Ah, very good. Okay, how many of you watch Christmas movies?
Yeah.
I counted 4. Okay, how many of you have ever saw the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen in it? 4 again. Okay, how many of you remember when the dad gives the boy that snow globe and he says, shake it whenever you think of me or you want me here and I'll come? 4 again. Okay, so they all are similar with the story, and me and my dad kind of have our similar one to that. So I grew up in a farmhouse, and we lived on this huge property with a bunch of acres, but half was woods, half was like land. And in the backyard we had this the sand pit with a bunch of roly-polies and spiders, and then in the woods there was this creepy shack with the windows broken in, and all they had in it was pots and pans, and so we called it the witch's hut, and we're like, oh, witches in the middle of the night get up and make potions and then return to pots and pans in the morning. And then there was also this downed tree in the woods that split open perfectly to where it looked like a canoe. And then there was my dad's workhouse, and it looked like the perfect place for a serial killer to hide out. So I was a crazy child. I was very wild, and I would go and adventure, but I didn't have the capability to look around me and figure out where I am or observing skills. So my dad told me one day, he's like, okay, Carly, whenever you get lost or you can't find us anywhere, I'm going to yell,
Eeyaki!
And you're going to respond with,
Eeyaki!
And we'll come find each other by the sound of our voice. And I was like, yeah, good, okay. And he's like, okay, let's practice. You run behind that blackberry bush and yell, Eeyaki. So I ran. Eeyaki! And then my dad was like,
Eeyaki!
from behind the bush, and I ran, and I found him, and I was like, yes, it works! And so one day my dad was late at the office, and I decided to go outside by myself, not realizing that Eeyaki probably wouldn't work when he's not there. And so I get out to the canoe, I hop on, I'm a pirate, and I'm like, sail! And so I sail towards the secret island. I get off, and I run straight into the woods looking for my treasure. And I found my treasure. It was a bunch of little leaves on the ground, and I was like, okay, now it's time to go home. Uh-oh. I'm in the woods. I don't know where I am. Okay, Eeyaki! I don't hear anything. Eeyaki! I don't hear anything. And I start crying. And you know how in every scary movie you're not supposed to keep walking, you're supposed to stay where you are, but of course I'm like every character in a scary movie, I start walking. Where am I? And then luckily my dad at the time was a surveyor, so he had a bunch of surveying tape around the edge of our property, so I eventually found one of those tapes lying around and I followed the edge of the property back to my house. But I went in the back door, and my mom, she's there, she's cooking dinner, and she goes,
what is it this time?
I was in the woods and I yelled Eeyaki and Dad and didn't answer me. And she was like, well, maybe next time you should figure out where you are in the woods. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And then I went and I hung out with my brother and played video games. But it was from that day on I realized that I should probably be more aware of my surroundings and that I'm more responsible for my actions. Thank you.
Woo!